Hi everyone and welcome to today's video. Today I'm reviewing a pen from an Australian maker. It's this pen and this is a pen from Artisan fountain pens. Now Artisan fountain pens is run and all the pens are handmade by a fellow YouTube reviewer from Australia, JPL. Young, passionate guy about pens and reviewed pens and all those sorts of things, and is now making his pens and selling them through Etsy under the banner of Artisan fountain pens. So these pens are made by JPL in Sydney, Australia, and are handmade, and this is made of acrylic, and this particular model is known as the Classic, not the Classic Slim. He has a smaller version. This is the Classic. And this is the black finish. I'm going to run over a few of the bits and pieces with the pen and then sort of talk about some dimensions, all that sort of stuff. And then we'll do a writing sample and see how we go. Artisan fountain pens, when they launched, were making like ebonite and pens and things like that, and he was presenting them in really lovely boxes. This Classic comes in a much simpler way. It's also not a particularly expensive pen, but particularly for a handmade pen, but it comes in one of these, sort of little fake velvet pen sleeves that you might get like a Chinese pen in, or that you might buy for, a few cents on eBay. Protects the pen and everything in postage, and the pen got here quite safely, but certainly not necessarily a glamorous way of presenting the pen. And this is how you get this sort of little card with it, which gives an idea of what it is, the model, the color, the acrylic, what the material is, when it was made, and a QC signature to show that it's undergone quality control. Now, JPL or Artisan fountain pens, he claims that each nib will be checked and sort of smoothed and all that sort of stuff prior to being sent out. And part of that then is like this sheet, which is the quality QC writing sample. So it shows you the pen, what ink it is, and then does some basic writing and stuff. Which is nice to get, but we'll have a look at the nib, how it writes in my writing sample a little bit in a few minutes. So let's talk about this pen, and we'll talk about the features and all those sorts of things, and then I'll go into a few extra little details. So this is, as I said, made of acrylic. This is the black. It's a typical cigar-shaped pen, and he's aiming for like a pen to sort of reference the pens of what he calls the golden age of fountain pens. So the top is conical, sort of very smooth, end of the cap. It swells out to the middle of the cap, which then runs straight. There's a little beveled step down, which I do like, the beveled, little step down there off the cap to a almost cylindrical body, which then tapers to another conical end, which matches the top of the cap. It is a twist cap or a screw cap, and it's about 2 1/4 turns to uncap this pen. When we uncap, we see the section. Now it's a slightly longer section, and that's a design feature. He says it's about it's 25 millimeter or 2.5 centimeter section, and it's fairly sort of straight through, no sort of flares or anything. And then we get a number 6 size nib, which he sources from a manufacturer in Taiwan. Relatively decent section. Good. I like a number 6 size nib. It fits nicely in the hand and gives you a nice writing distance from the page. And then you get these little threads, which are fairly smooth. And then there is a step down onto the barrel there, which isn't, I wouldn't say it's sharp, but it is noticeable, and like there is a slight catch on it. The pen is a really good size, and it's a very light pen, being mostly acrylic. It fits nice in the hand, but certainly isn't heavy. And part of the other reason he was making these is for an ergonomic pen that would be comfortable for long writing sessions. And in terms of the size and shape of the pen, I would really have to agree. Now you untwist another lot of threads, reveals a converter, and is a cartridge converter pen, standard international, which is excellent. I don't see any reason why this pen couldn't be eyedroppered. If you put an O-ring on and some silicone grease and stuff like that, it could potentially be used as an eyedropper. I haven't tried it, but there's no reason why it shouldn't be. It's one piece of acrylic, and there's no metal components in the pen. The threads are nice and smooth. They're not the tightest threads going around, but once they're locked in, it's fairly tight. And it's the same with the cap. Like, there's a little bit of give, but not too bad. So things like, like, it's a fairly well made, fairly basic, straightforward black acrylic or plastic fountain pen, which he turns and polishes and all of those sorts of things. And on the page, he does say that they are looking for unparalleled quality control, which for the most part I would sort of have to agree with. Let's now look at it in comparison to a pen just for size sake. Now, as you see, there's no clip or anything on this pen, so it will roll around. Here it is alongside a TWSBI Eco, so you can get a good sense of the size of this pen. It is a fairly decent size. Like the Eco is not a small pen. It's not a huge pen, not a small pen, and the Artisan Fountain Pen Classic is a little bit bigger. Now, if you look at these uncapped, then you can see that once again, it's a fairly sort of decent size. Not huge, but pretty decent. Let's talk the specs of this pen now. So, as I said, it's not a small pen. When it's capped, it's 145 millimeters, so like just slightly longer than, say, like a Lamy Safari or something like that, which come in at around the 140 mark. Uncapped, it's 130. So it is a nice size, and in the hand it fits well. And with that longer section, you don't necessarily feel the threads there, which is nice. And it sits nice and back far on the webbing of your hand. The pen, in theory, does post, and they say it's 165 millimeters. It's not the most secure posting, and I would be afraid that that the acrylic might chip or crack. And like it doesn't post like naturally sort of straight. Like, you've actually got to find the point for it to sit straight. The section diameter is about 11 millimeters, which is great. The weight of the pen is 18 grams in total, and that's with a little bit of ink, and that's 12.5 in the body of the pen and 5.5 in the cap. So if you do decide to post it, you're not throwing the balance off. It's still just a very light pen. And when it's uncapped, the weight of the balance of the pen does lead down towards the nib. Even though there's not a lot of weight in it, it does lead down. I should also say that this is a number 6 steel nib, and it has a standard sort of plastic feed, and that's all in a nib housing that screws into this section here. So let's do a writing sample, and then I'll come back and talk about some pros and cons. Okay, time for a writing sample here. This is Clairefontaine 90 gram paper. What I have here is the Artisan fountain pen, and this is the Classic, and it is the black model, which I think that's all they offer at the moment. This is a steel medium nib. It does only come in fine or medium at this stage, although there is the hope that he'll be able to start introducing broad nibs soon. The ink I'm using here is Diamine Cherry Starburst, which is from the Les Paul guitar themed set that they did. I'm a big fan of Diamine inks. I think they write really well. They're super consistent, and this is no exception. Okay, let's talk about how the actual pen writes. So, it's smooth, like, for the most part. And what I'm going to say here will sound contradictory to itself. The pen writes wet. It has been tuned to be on the wetter side. I think that's what JPL has been interested in doing in creating this pen. And that's good. And it is fairly smooth, but it's a grippy nib. Like, there's a bit of feedback, you can hear that. Like, on those strokes, we do catch. So while it is a fine writing experience, it's just a bit odd. Like, I would probably, if this was a pen I was sort of like super invested in, like a more expensive pen or whatever the case may be, I'd probably get this nib worked on, because just that slight little sort of grippy feeling on the page just catches every now and again. Quick writing. Like, there is no issue with it keeping up, which is excellent, as it has been tuned slightly on the wetter side. If we're now going to, like, reverse writing, very dry, scratchy, not pleasant. And this is not a flex nib. Like, you're pushing just more ink onto the page. It sort of digs in if you push too hard. So, look, as far as writing goes, it's perfectly fine. It's not overly interesting. So let's talk about some pros and cons now about the Artisan Fountain Pens Classic. Let's start with the cons, and I'm going to start right where I started with the nib, where I finished with the nib, and that is that drag or that sort of feedback on some of the strokes. Like, it's a fairly wet writing experience, and you know, smooth enough, but on very smooth Clairefontaine paper, you could hear the drag there. The other issue I have with this pen is a few little inconsistencies and just a few little things that just bug me ever so slightly. The first thing that bugs me that I'll show you here is in the acrylic, where he has shaped the pen, the acrylic at this point is very thin, and you can see like little flash. I'm not sure how well the camera's picking it up, but there are like flashes of where it's gone see-through. You sort of get that like grey look, that smoky look, and then the cap in general has moments where it's sort of like where it's thinner, like around where the cap seals and all those sorts of things. It just like, and I just don't think that's a particularly good look. And the same happens on the end of the barrel as well. I just think it looks a bit like it takes away from the line of the pen. Like, these lines are quite nice, the shape is really nice, and then you just get these little like bits of smoky sort of coming through, and I'm not a big fan of that. The finish is generally very good, except for on the bevel, it's quite rough. You know, things like that. But also, one of the things two little inconsistencies that grab me is I don't think the pen is straight. Like, I can't quite work out how to measure this, but there's a feeling like that the section sort of pulls to the left ever so slightly. Like, it's just not been, like, whether it's in the manufacturing of where the threads attach or whatever the case may be, it just doesn't quite feel like it's completely true. And it's a handmade pen, so there are going to be inconsistencies, and you accept that and you know that, but it's just something like this is a new company, he's working out how to do this as he goes, and hopefully this is something that he can sort of continue to work on. But the other thing with the section is that there's a little creak in it. Like that probably won't be picked up on the camera, but like, it's sort of every now and again, like, you just get like a little there. Like, and that's not me putting a whole lot of pressure on the pen. And sometimes you actually notice that just when you're writing, like, you hold down on the pen, if you put your thumb on the threads at all, like, there's like a little creak. So these are little manufacturing things that he will learn and improve on, but just things I've noticed in this. Let's talk about the pros. I love the size of this pen and the weight. It's nice and light, fits well in the hand, and that sort of long, straight section does feel very comfortable. The price of this pen, this is $50 Australian. So that's a really reasonable price for a handmade pen. Many other manufacturers who produce similar sorts of pens would be at least double that price. So he's doing a really great job. I think in general, his finishing of the pen and the polish is really good. As I said, apart from around the bevel, there's only a few other little spots where like you can notice like little, you know, polish marks and things like that. But for the most part, he's done a really, really great job. The writing experience, it's a nice wet pen. It has been tuned that way, which I appreciate. The other thing is that this is a small startup company. He's really starting from the ground up here, making them himself at home, and he's doing a really great job. Like, hats off to him for getting out there and actually doing it. And, you know, the more we support companies like this, the better he will get at making these pens, and the better the product will become. And I think he has the potential to make really, really wonderful pens. Once he sorts out a few little issues, I think they're going to be really, really wonderful. So this was the Artisan Fountain Pen Classic, made here in Australia by JPL. You know, if you're not familiar with him, check him out on YouTube. A lot of videos about a number of different pen topics. I hope you found this video interesting and useful. If you did, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Hit the notifications button if you want to stay up to date with the videos that I produce. Please feel free to get in touch using any of the platforms listed below. You can find me on Instagram or Twitter at @the_offstage_me, or you can contact me on any of my videos here or drop me an email, which is also listed down below. Please feel free to get in touch if you've got any products you think I should be looking at, or if there's a way you'd like to support the channel by sponsoring a review or providing an item for review. I would really love to hear from you. In the meantime, enjoy your pens, enjoy writing, and I'll talk to you soon.